Hello, hello, and welcome to Intercultural Spark, the show about that spark inside each of us that drives you to spark change with your business in the world. Today, it's a little bit of a different format. I'm using an interview, in fact, the first interview that I ever did, getting used to using video and things, and it was with Paul Klein. Paul passed away this past October, and Paul was an amazing longtime art dealer and critic and artist mentor in the Chicago area. And again, he was one of the first people I met when I moved to Chicago, and he was my first interview back in 2017. Before Paul passed, he made available almost 200 interviews that he did with artists and art dealers and critics and collectors and everyone involved in the business of art. It's an amazing collection that's all available at Klein Artist Works. So I hope you'll enjoy this interview with Paul. He is fun and quirky and brilliant and just really feels that taking action, showing up and being present and giving it your all is something that everyone can do to make change in the world. So enjoy and welcome to Intercultural Spark. Mentioned before, Paul, I'm talking to people who have really found success or followed their dreams or done something new and different post age 50. And I know your career itself has spanned many years, but I was particularly interested in everything you've been doing with Klein Artist Work and how you've been helping artists and really using technology to do that. And that seems like something newer. Would you agree that's sort of your dream or passion, or I shouldn't assume that for you? Tell me about how you see it.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think a lot of it is trying to stay relevant and contribute. And I think you've got different kinds of people on the planet, givers and takers. I'd rather be a giver.
That sounds great. And actually, from all the testimonials and things I've seen, it sounds like you've really helped and given a lot. But talk about staying relevant. What does that mean to you?
I think, all right, first of all, I'm 70, and I think it's a matter, you get to the point where you realize that everything's a process and that every time you accomplish a goal, you set out another goal. So it's not the goals that are the objectives, it's the process. And the process is about making a difference and being able to contribute. And to do that, I think you have to have some sense of what's going on in the world. And I think you have to be available to younger people for the enthusiasm of their ideas and older people for the perspective and the wisdom. So like I teach this course and I counsel people all over the planet one-on-one, and I don't get a sense that anybody gives a damn that I'm 70. It's sort of like, oh, this is interesting, I'm learning something. That's what seems to matter. I mean, I think some people post 50 feel like they may be less relevant, but I don't think other people
Oh, interesting. So you think it's things that people project onto themselves as
Yes.
opposed to what societies or others are projecting
Yes.
onto them?
I mean, all the time.
Do you think that's because of your industry, though, or do you think that's true of society in general?
I think it's true. I think you can be who, in our society, there's not a whole lot of gatekeepers and a hell of a lot of judgment. I mean, a 70-year-old shouldn't be going to a rave party and expecting acceptance. I mean,
Wait, is there a story there?
No, there is not. But there's plenty of times when I look around a room and I go, hey, I'm the oldest person here. Nobody cares. And I go, oh, well, keep moving. So, I mean, it's not like I go to my kids' parties, but there's plenty of range of relevance.
Mm. Do you see places, though, where your age is a benefit to you?
Well, sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of perspective. And, I'm dealing with people about having successful art careers. And I think so much of it is about doing what resonates. And for an artist, it's about being unique and and finding people who resonate with your vision. It's not like being Ford or General Motors trying to convince somebody. It's finding the 6 or 7 people who agree. So it's important to be who you are. And, some of that is about your age and that relevance, and some of it's about what you see in the perspective, and some of it's about, what you hope for going forward.
Mm. So Paul, I know you had your gallery. So actually, for anyone who's watching, of course, you and I met when you had this crazy idea to put a, a natural sculpture that would decompose.
Yeah, what is that? Roy Staub.
Yes.
In the pond in Lincoln Park and the lagoon. Yeah, I remember that.
So, which was wonderful. And then you had the gallery. Talk to me, when the gallery closed in '04, was that something you had planned? Like, how did your transition work to what you're doing now?
Bumpy. I think initially there's a series of steps. I needed to stay relevant in my mind, sort of similar to what we're talking about, and the gallery wasn't quite the vehicle for doing that. So I changed what the gallery focused on, from being solely abstract art to much more new media and shit that plugged in and moved and bounced and showed up on TV screens. And to a large extent, I grew faster than my audience and left them in my wake. And people would say, "Nice show, where's the art?" I didn't really want to compromise and go back to shit that I could sell that I wasn't really identifying with. So I owned the real estate and I sold it. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. And I ended up doing all the art for, the McCormick Place expansion. And that was really interesting. I thought that would take a year or two, but it took like 3 or 4. And then I thought I was solvent. And then the economy in 2008 knocked me down, and I figured I needed to do something, to stay on top. And serendipitously went to lunch with a young artist, and she said, "You must make so much money doing studio visits." And I laughed and I said, "I don't do that many. I've never charged for one." And she said, "But you should." From this strange conversation, this whole, 6 weeks later, I started this course.
What year was that? I'm sorry, what year did you start it?
I don't know. 2011.
Okay.
And it's morphed a few times since then. I chose to focus on the intersection of what I'm good at, talking about art and stuff, and what I like. Teaching and art, are the two things that I focused on intersecting. I think whatever age you're at, you should do what you enjoy doing more. I'm teaching artists how to have a successful career, but I don't think that's about making a priority of earning money. I think that's about making a priority of following your soul, and the money happens. And like we were talking a moment ago, the money isn't a goal; it's a vehicle to enable you to move your vision along further. I don't see any reason that having goals or objectives and purpose changes with age. Maybe you have enough money and you don't need to make money, and you can give it away constructively. There's all kinds of things you can do to align your goals with continuing to contribute.
Do you have a process where you set goals? So do you set goals each year, or?
I hate goals.
Okay.
I suppose my only goal on a daily basis is to contribute. And I feel like if I contribute, then I'm worthy and I'm entitled to be here alive on this planet, and I'm not a user. And if I'm contributing and I'm worthy, I'm entitled for good things to happen to me. And therefore, I better contribute again tomorrow. That's about it. That's about the goal is like trying to figure out a way to it's sort of like, I don't want to die. And therefore, if I contribute, I feel like, okay, I have a reason to live, and it's coming back and not biting me in the ass. Whereas if I go, shit, I'm just going to sit here and coast and rest on my laurels and not do anything and get ready for the Grim Reaper, seems sort of to me like, it'll be here in a minute.
Is that your door, right?
Yeah, hello. It's pretty easy.
Well, how many artists how many people have gone through the course at this point?
Somewhere between 400 and 500.
Mm. Do people stay in touch afterwards? Do you?
Oh yeah, really, really a lot. And there's a community that, you know, there's a Facebook page, and everybody to a large extent stays in touch with everybody else that, you know, that want to, you know, which is probably a couple of hundred of them are staying in touch with 5 or 6 people with each other and then contributing periodically through the Facebook page. But it's really cool because, you know, there's like artists in Nigeria and Australia and Canada and Japan and Bali and Thailand and Georgia and Victoria, you know, and somebody goes, hey, I got an extra room. And somebody says, I'll be there next week. And somebody says, hey, I'm coming to Hong Kong. Anybody have a place? And, you know, 3 people will say, yeah, come stay with me. You know, like, if you're going to Hong Kong and somebody's offering to put you up, that's a hell of a deal. So, you know, there is a nice community. And, you know, some of it's trying to figure out how people can participate. You can extrapolate virtually. Like, how do I do a 2-person show in Hong Kong and again in London where the art isn't physically being moved from one location to the other? And that's a nice thing to figure out, so that you know, I mean, you can do it digitally, and you can, you know, you can have something printed at another place, etc. But the idea is to try and figure out how all these relationships can happen, taking advantage of the internet and what technology has to offer today. You know, so some of that is trying to stay abreast of that and challenge people and see what they can do.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because I clearly didn't grow up with computers, and yet your entire business is based on an online format. So how did you decide what systems to use? How did you infuse technology into everything you do?
You know, it's trial and error, and I basically decided to be the expert in the family and stay ahead of my children 20-something years ago. And I'm still the one they call up for information.
Oh, your children call you for how to figure stuff out? That's awesome.
And not so much anymore, but they used to. And I don't know. It's sort of like, it's not really easy for me to travel. It's not really easy for me to physically make a lot of art. I feel so much like that guy in Thunderdome or something that's strapped on that big person's chest and the little guy's in charge. You know, I'm like working with Jorge, who comes back from this funny, he's a Spanish artist who lives in Amsterdam, and he comes back from this Florist artist residency in Japan where he did something with a space rock that he made up. And I said, oh my God, you should be the first artist in residence for the European Space Agency. And he says, okay. And a month later he says, Paul, they wouldn't pay me enough money. I said, fuck that, just do it. You don't need the money, you need the title. Tell him you'll be the prototype. And he goes, okay. And he pulled it off. And now he's designing a temple for this, you know, the Shackleton crater on the south pole of the moon, which, you know, people are going to die in space. And we need a ritual that isn't based on all of our pagan religions, but individually, but all of them together. Let's have a new ritual. So this is what his art's about. This is me. You know, this is the stuff that I get to do. I couldn't do this without the internet. You know, I don't have to get out of my chair. I don't have to put pants on. Thanks, hon.
So we won't pan the camera down. Thank you.
No, she says I do have pants on. It's all good.
But it also looks like, just even when I can see your excitement, like you visibly get so excited about this ability to throw out ideas, and then people will do it. I've noticed, we talked about this before, so I thought it was interesting because you have thousands and thousands of views. You have 93 videos on YouTube. You've got thousands of views. And I was looking at one video that had easily like 500 or 600 views, and nothing personal, but like the lighting was off. Sometimes you couldn't see the person. And it was just, I found it fascinating because it sounds like you're just, it feels like the goal to produce outweighs the need for the technology to be perfect. So do you just try things, or how do you do that?
Editing's a pain in the butt. So I figured, hey, there's a virtue in having it raw. I don't know. I mean, it's a little embarrassing. And nobody seems to care.
I was wondering, so are you self-conscious about it, or do you feel like...
No.
No? Okay.
I mean, there was one video, where I was interviewing a big curator, and I noticed that I was eating and chewing with my mouth open. So I just wiped out the video, and that one's only audio. But other than that, no. But wait a minute. This is interesting because, I just started recording them so that I could share them with the audience and the people who weren't there. And then all of a sudden, I realized that I had 300 recordings that were all an hour in length. And to an extent, it rivals, Project 21 in terms of all these hour-long discussions with artists and curators about how they see the art world working. So a lot of it's baby steps and just doing it, like incrementally. I decided that it was good. I don't think that I'm the only one who can make aesthetic decisions. And frequently, farming it out to somebody else is good or frees me up to do more shit. So like, I took 50 videos that I thought were hour-long and good, and I gave them all to Martin, and I said, take each one and condense it down to 3 or 5 minutes of good snippet. So he did that, and on my website I have excerpts, and a lot of them are real different than what the shit that I would have taken out of them, but okay. I wrote a book, and the book has done really well, and the book happened from taking the first 100 or so webinars and having them all transcribed. And then I gave the transcription to somebody else and said, give me 6 pages from each of these 80 pages of transcription, give me 6 pages of good quotes. And then I said, okay, now go through all the good quotes and put them together into a good, create the chapters in a good sequence. Okay, now write an outline. And she gave it back to me, and I looked at it and I said, awesome, it sucks. But the form was there, the quotes were there, her writing was terrible. I rewrote the whole thing. It took me 2-3 months.
But did you kept, as far as like the selections that she had made?
I kept all the selections. I kept the structure. So basically, I'm the kind of guy who just throws shit at the wall, lets it dry for a couple of minutes, and then starts climbing. If it falls off, at least I got a pile to start a new one on. It's if stuff fails, it's okay.
Although it sounds like a lot of stuff, at least what I'm saying, a lot of stuff succeeds. I watched your, you have a new intro out. I think you just put it up in February, and it's a promo for the course, this round of course that started. Yep. And I loved this, Paul, because you did your brief info, and you said, now let me hear from you. You flipped the switch, and like a grid of like 12 people came up. There was a baby crying so loud that nobody could hear. Somebody else started giving you a hard time, like, well, who are you? And I think you said back, well, obviously you're not going to take my course. Are there any other questions? It was, I loved it because it was so unpolished. It was like, let me just throw this out there and let's just see what comes up. But it seems like there's obviously, if you've had 400 or 500 artists come through the program, you're having a lot of success with it. It's resonating with people.
Yes, it does. I don't think I'm for everybody, and I think it's a question of finding the people that relate.
I think you said that actually in the video. You were talking about there was no one big art community, but there's communities of people that you resonate.
Entirely. Yep.
Which actually, would support getting so much out there because you never know how you'll reach people.
I think so. I mean, I think you don't know where good news is going to come from. I think you want to, it's a little tacky, but I think you want to invest in your own karma. And my sense is, you start investing in your own karma, good shit comes back. It doesn't necessarily come back linear. Like if I'm nice to you, he may come back and be nice to me. But I don't know why, but somehow that seems to happen. So I do it.
Okay. So one other question that I had, and this just goes back to when you were talking about even with your gallery, when you wanted to stay relevant.
Yeah.
So I think that term resonates with a lot of people as they age. It's that whole thing of how do you stay relevant? it feels like you're seeing the trends almost before they happen. Is that from being out in the world? Do you read? How do you feel like you do that?
It's a plus and a minus. It's been true my whole life, and it's pretty weird. And I don't know that I realized it until some years ago. You know, like, I move into a new situation too early and I leave it too soon. So, like, you know, my gallery in the West Loop, I was there years before anybody else. You know, and I sold it for a third of what it would be worth 5 years later. Now now look at it. You know, Google, you know, is in the building half a block away, right?
Sure.
Imagine what that would do to the property values. Okay, so it's like that a lot, and maybe it's a gift, because the way I work with artists is I talk to you, I see what you're thinking, I see the potential, I look at it and I turn it around and I give the potential back to you, and you go, oh my God, that's frigging brilliant. How do I do that? And I go, okay, here's how we go. It's not like, so I feel like a lot of consultants give you what you already want or already know. I feel like what I'm good at is giving people the shit they can't see yet, but that's theirs. You know, so some of that, it's that same notion. You know, it's just sort of like, I don't know. Some things just seem like they're going to work. Let's try them. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me. I don't know if it's me, or I don't know if it's just what anybody can do. I don't assume I'm special.
You leave that to everybody else.
Yeah, whatever. I look at the people who are doing this stuff post 90, and you know, I find that pretty intriguing. And some of those people are fabulously relevant. I try to find what distills it the most, you know, and somebody, you know, Chuck Close said, inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get to work. Somebody else got it more succinct. Show up.
Yeah.
You know, and that's pretty much it. So get your ass out the door, or get your ass on the internet, play bridge, do something, and then do something else. That's it.
That's awesome. Is there anything I didn't ask you? The technology we talked about, so that you're completely infused with it. It sounds
I don't think somebody has to be. You know, I think it's a question of doing what resonates and pushing yourself a little bit, and trying to be better tomorrow than you were than today, and be better today than you were yesterday, which is always growing. You know, I don't think that means you have to embrace technology per se. I think that means you have to embrace growth, and I don't think that's something that ever stops.
Talk to you about it, because like I said, I'm a big fan. I love following what you do.
Likewise.
So
you know, we both have good energy, and we're both contributing. So yeah, mutual support.
Yeah, and that sort of, well, why not? Let's try it. What the hell? You know?
Just like this.
Right. Exactly. So now we'll see if I can actually do it. So you think that once we hang up?
It's like automatic, and if it doesn't, you have my number.
Okay. All right. Thank you.